Today, we've got a video from the streets where Canadians are asked about the carbon tax and whether a referendum should be called on it for any new changes to it. We've got the question here, should any new carbon pricing legislation be put to a referendum first? As in, should Canadians have to decide this directly? Or should our elected representatives do this? Unfortunately, if you're Canadian and you're watching this, you know that our elected representatives, for the most part, are boneheads. So there are a few good ones, but most of them are boneheads, especially the ones running the country.
Yeah, I'm neither here nor there on that. As long as there's a plan to do something with the revenue, I think that justifies it a little bit more.
There are certain issues that I think a referendum is necessary and important. Broad, sweeping changes. The carbon tax, I don't know, reaches that level of impact necessary to require a referendum. It seems like if you establish a referendum for a carbon tax, then it almost sets a precedent that any tax increase should require a referendum, which leads you to a point that you have referendums so often it defeats the point of the representatives. It doesn't defeat the point of representatives, but you get the point of repeated referendums over and over and over and over and over again.
I'm calling a referendum on that guy's shirt. It's too much for my eyes to handle.
We elect representatives to serve our interests, and we should trust them to do so. And we should trust them to act in our best interests.
No, I don't think so. I'm not a big believer in referendums. I think politicians should be are elected, and they should be able to do their job based on those election results. When you always have to go back doing referendums for every political move you want to make, it could really slow things down. So I'd say no.
What era were these guys born in? Do they not know what's going on in this country? Our government's just running us into the ground. It's not even like an opinion at this point. It's just fact. We literally have frozen bodies outside of a hospital because people can't afford to bury their loved ones. That's how bad things are in Canada.
I think that really the responsibility is with large corporations. I think that the individual person has much less of an impact than large corporations, businesses that are responsible for a lot of emissions. So I think that that would be tricky.
Yeah, referendums are tricky. I agree. I don't know if that's the way to go about it. I think you put these issues front and center when it comes to elections, whether it's municipal, provincial, and federal. Let voters make their decision at the polls at that point in terms of the way we want to go when it comes to carbon tax. I don't think a referendum is the right avenue to take there.
Well, I think the biggest referendum of all is an election. So I'm sure that I know that the major political parties right now have taken a position on that. And I think that'll be a significant issue for the next election.
Yes, to my understanding, I feel like the community should be involved in just levels of that taxation and the percentages of everything. I don't think it should be behind closed doors.
Discourse is good. It's always good to be democratic about things, and the more opinions, the better. You get a bigger pool of opinion, you have more information to draw on.
I think a referendum might be useful. I feel like carbon tax should be higher for companies like industrial factories. I think that would be more helpful than taxing individual people, but I don't think carbon tax is a bad thing overall. So referendum is a good idea.
Does she not know the cost of things today, or is she just living at her parents' house? There's 1 in 5 people in Toronto can't pay their rent. 1 in 5.
Could. I don't know what sort of result they'd get. I think people are so polarized around that.
I guess that's every government's decision, and you got to vote them in or you vote them out. That's democracy.
Yeah, I think that would be great if we all had a voice in it. Isn't that what democracy is, we
know clearly what the policies of both parties are, so when the federal election happens, you'll know if you're voting for the Liberals or the Tories or any of the mushy middle, which side they're on. So I would think we can't start having referendums about every decision about taxation in this country. That's how we get into a quagmire like we see in the U.S.
I just see waste of time, honestly. I think if we're going to get a carbon pricing regulation, a new one come in, then why don't we just, listen to what people are saying during the election, elect somebody, and pray on the 10% chance that they'll actually follow through with what they say.
That guy's lost hope in government big time. He's not wrong, really.
I think that's unrealistic as well. The average person doesn't have enough information to be able to adequately define what would be the larger impact for every piece of legislation. Now, should some of them be up for referendum? Absolutely. But as it stands right now, to have every piece of legislation it would grind the system to a halt.
There's a very valid point there. Like, the general public just doesn't even know the ins and outs of everything. So I completely agree there, except the fact that if you get someone very corrupt in power like we have right now with Justin Trudeau, then it doesn't matter if they know all the ins and outs, which they do. They just use it to their advantage to get stinking rich and run us into the ground. So at this point, wouldn't it just be better to have a referendum? I don't know.
Well, I think we're the only ones in North America that are paying a carbon tax right now, and we're like less than 10% of the population, so we're not making a difference. China puts on a new coal plant every week, and India as well, so, and they're not paying any carbon tax, so we shouldn't be paying carbon tax, and yes, there should be a referendum.
Praise the Lord, and I'm not even religious, but that man said it. He said it. Someone finally said it. China's putting on a new coal plant every week, so is India. Why are we paying a carbon tax? It's absolute nonsense.
Is for better advisors, more science, and more realistic plans. But I don't know if that's wishful thinking, but I really think that, you know, the people who are elected need to make those decisions based on what we're asking for, and not do a referendum.
Well, of course, you know, more opinions are a lot better, I think, and that's what what you're getting when you put them, you know, bring them out front and discuss them and talk about them, you know.
Well, I think that's the role of leaders, to be able to anticipate the future and the impact of a lot of what we're doing unthinkingly, because we're more concerned with the now rather than anticipating what's going to be happening 10, 15 years from now. That is really the role of leaders, and I'm all for leaders taking on that role, as long as it's done reasonably and responsibly, and and not just out of whack with what is possible in terms of financial ability and capacity.
Well, you heard it there right from the people, what they think, referendum or not. I've got a solution that's better than any of that. Let's have an election that is automatically triggered by whatever poll they want to decide, Nano's poll, or maybe it's all the polls combined, averaged, whatever. If there's a switch in party favor, party popularity that goes over a certain threshold, aka right now the Conservatives set 99% chance to win, even though the Liberals are in power, minority government. Once that balance shifts to be so much more the other side, once say the Conservatives hit 90% chance to win or 95%, sometime it triggers an auto election, so we don't have this nonsense. Because what that would do is force an election when obviously the people do not like the party in power. It's for the best interest of the people and not the best interest of these cronies in the government making their $400,000 paychecks. Something to think about. Next up, we've got a hilarious clip from Garnet Genuous that talks about the carbon tax in Parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned, on this side of the House, we want to axe the tax. It seems across the way their priorities are distracts and axe the facts. So let's insert some facts back into this discussion, Mr. Speaker. As we seek to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime, let's be clear that the carbon tax, the NDP Liberal carbon tax, is a failed experiment. This government has, after 8 years of talking about it, and talking about how raising your taxes is going to save the planet, it hasn't worked. They haven't met any of their environmental targets. The Environment Minister might be planning on climbing on a roof somewhere again because they haven't achieved the results that they promised. It was an experiment. They thought, let's try to force people to pay more and see if that fixes the environmental problems we have. And they've clearly failed the result. So let's axe the tax instead of their approach of axing the facts.
I can't believe he just called out Stephen Guilbeault for climbing on the roof. So if you're not aware, he's broken the law multiple times when he was an environmental activist, climbing on, I don't know, his ministers' roofs, and he's got arrested numerous times. So here he is in his orange jumpsuit, just having a grand old time. There's a famous famous shot. There he is, from this to this, making whatever, $300,000 taxpayer dollars. He looks just as crazy in this photo as he does in this one. Next up, we've got another question here. Do you believe gas-powered vehicles can be phased out in Canada by 2035? Let's see what the public has to say on this one.
That does seem a little bit unrealistic. If we had an interim goal to get partway there, it probably would make a lot more sense. So it's like, it almost seems like an aspirational goal that the government knows that we're not going to reach. So they're asking for more than they know that they're going to get, would be my impression of it.
If those are the current metrics, yeah, absolutely. We have a global climate crisis that we need to address. So if we focus, we got rid of lead gasoline, back when it was causing so many issues, we can do it again. If gas is going to be an issue and electric's the way to go, then our government can focus on that and we can get it phased out for sure.
Guy's out of touch.
No, I don't. I don't think what the problem is, I think you can't have a date and then try to make it work. I think you have to have things in place and then have a realistic end date.
It feels ambitious, and it feels ambitious because we're so different from the European countries. We've got so much space to cover, so much infrastructure and whatever. Having said that, we can move toward it, definitely, and maybe faster than we are, but I think it might be a little bit ambitious.
Yeah, those two ladies there have great takes on that. Like, realistic approaches, not this nonsense, especially setting things up beforehand and then working to a goal versus just set a goal and with no plan.
I don't believe so. But it could be a possibility if money was put towards that.
No, I think that's pushing it a little bit. I think we need a little more time. And why is basically, we're finding in cold weather, it's a bit of a challenge, and I think we can overcome them, but we're going to need some time to feel confident that when it's minus 40 below, like we get here, that we're going to be able to drive our vehicles.
Very ambitious. I think it can be done. I know that they're very effective. They're very affordable in the long run, so they're more of an investment than traditional gas-powered vehicles. I think it's definitely something to aspire to do, for sure.
I'm not sure that they can be phased out completely. I think it's a good goal for our country to work towards. Solely battery-powered vehicles are maybe not a feasible option for the country as a whole. We have an option to look at. There's good hybrid vehicles on the market right now. We also have hydrogen fuel that needs to be explored a bit further.
I think it would probably take longer than that. That's only like a bit over 10 years, so I think it would be good, beneficial, but I don't think it would happen that soon.
I know technologically it fully can be. I don't know if people are going to implement what's necessary to do so, but yes, it's fully possible.
I know some people who do have electric powered vehicles. The majority of people I know have gas. And the majority of demand I see, like especially my father's a car salesman, as he works in cars, like the majority of the ones he sells is gas. It's not electric. And while the demand for electric powered vehicles, especially hybrid vehicles, has been increasing, I just can't see it enveloping the demand and the amount of gas powered vehicles that are both produced and sold within the next 12 years unless there are serious incentives to produce them, like Denmark has the tax subsidies and such like that to make electric cars super cheap.
I mean, so I drive an electric car, full disclosure, and I know that we have a long way to go with the infrastructure to support electric vehicles, and that's 11 years away. Probably not. I'd like to think that we could, but probably not.
There we go, an honest, from someone with an electric vehicle, an honest take on it. We just don't have the electrical grid for it. How can we switch if we don't even have the electrical grid to support 40 million electric cars?
I don't think they can be phased out fully. I'm a firm believer in the hybrid model. You can get really great mileage out of a hybrid. We're seeing a lot of issues with the pure electric. I know my father's had a hybrid Camry for quite some time, 52 miles to the gallon, So we should phase out. We need to limit our carbon footprint, but it can be done differently.
They're going to have to increase the infrastructure for charging electric vehicles, and they're going to have to take another look, I think, at electric vehicles and problems they've had and sort that out.
At this point, you know, it's going to take a massive kind of country building move to put in enough electrical charging stations and everything to even make that a reality. And I really think we're so addicted to oil and cheap oil that it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Will it be? No. Call me a, pessimist, but no.
I don't think it should be. Personally, there's room for everything, including electric hybrids with gas, with hydrogen, if they can do that as well. There's more than one solution. Some of it's just not idling at the Tim Hortons for 15 minutes waiting for your coffee.
That last guy's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, it's just not set up like that. Guilbeault thinks that he can just say some stuff and that's going to happen. Oh, we're not going to build roads. It's like, okay, great, good for you. Like, that's not actually what's going on in Canada. You can't just put in these mandates with zero plan. The electrical grid cannot charge that many electric cars, just period. So why would we even talk about this unless that is set up first? That's where we're going to wrap up the episode. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about referendum and Canada switching to electric cars by 2035. It's not going to happen, period. But let me know down below. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to check out some merch, I got that linked up down below and also in the YouTube shelf now. Stay warm, stay fed. I'll see you guys in the next one.